Hey everyone, today is going to be a bit of a controversial subject, so sorry in advance, but this one is about the difference between animal rights and animal welfare. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference of what those two things are and kind of where individuals and groups fall in those two differences. So, first of all, animal rights is there's a lot of misinformation about animal rights. So, animal rights is essentially trying to give rights to animals that are the same rights as human beings. Sorry, just really quick. Cleveland, our banana genetic striped ball python. I haven't had a lot of ball pythons out lately because a lot of them are still breeding. A lot of them are in shed. A lot of them are laying, so I don't have them a whole lot. Little ones don't show off super great on camera. So Cleveland, banana genetic stripe. As he's getting older, he's getting lots of little fun dots. So sorry, back up just in case anybody's wondering who this guy was or what he is. Animal rights, so that's giving animals the same rights as human beings. So that does sound good when you first hear it. I will certainly agree to that. But when you think about that a little bit further, what that means is basically that means that there's no pets, there's no zoos, there's no research, there's no studies, there's no livestock, nothing at all. And while yes, that could be good to some degree, how the world works, as well as anybody who has cats, dogs, hamsters, snakes, anything like that, that means that would make it illegal for you to keep them. And while I do believe that there needs to be some sort of basis of animal rights and welfare as far as well-being goes, the fact of the matter is a lot of the organizations behind animal rights, that is their end goal, to eliminate all domestic animals, period. There is no domestication of animals under any facet, and that includes sanctuaries, research facilities, zoos, and places like that, as well as private pets. With that being said, we're talking a little bit about animal welfare, and that's kind of where a lot of people, including a lot of us reptile hobbyists and breeders, as well as people who have dogs and cats and things like that, that's where they stand for, and that is for the responsible keeping, breeding, domesticated animals. That also includes ranchers and people in livestock and agricultural communities and stuff like that. So what that means is that we want to continue to have these as pets, as livestock, as part of things that are part of our culture and economy, but doing it in a humane way and keeping their health and benefit first and foremost. So there's a little bit of a difference there. So one is animal rights, which sounds good, but that's literally the same rights as human beings, which there's a lot of implications behind that. And then animal welfare, which is just keeping well-being of animals in general. So when we talk about animal rights, that is the people for the protection of whatever animals. So that's PETA, that's the Humane Society of America, that's the ASPCA. Those are groups that, while originally, and we think that are founded in a lot of good things, trying to do good things for animals, in reality, there's a lot of things that go on behind closed doors that aren't necessarily great. I'm not going to sit here and run any of these guys into the dirt, but there is a lot of things that most people would find not really great about them. They are for-profit organizations. When you donate to their causes, you're giving money to the individuals. You're not really feeding them. They have over a $200 million a year budget for all of the stuff they do. They are the ones who push for the animal rights and bills and legislation and stuff like that, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So then when you talk about animal welfare groups, that is people like Protect the Harvest. That is people like USARK. So Protect the Harvest is a group that mainly deals with kind of outdoorsmen, sportsmen, and agricultural and livestock type organizations. They're ones that are kind of more founded in trying to keep American values with livestock, with agricultural, with horticultural, things like that further on. But they're doing a lot of things to maintain animal welfare. They're trying to keep in place and promote beneficial keeping and housing and care for livestock and everything like that. As well as USARK, which you guys have probably heard me talk about any number of times. That is essentially the group for reptile keepers in this country to promote the good, proper keeping and welfare of reptile pets in our community. So that's what USARK is doing. That is what Protect the Harvest is doing, groups like that. And there are plenty of others, and I'll throw some links down below at the end of this video. But those are the groups that kind of we want to stand for. So when I was talking a little bit earlier about kind of the animal rights, people pushing for legislation, things like that, What that means is that a lot of times, and I'm going to do my best not to get political on this. I really will. I promise. I won't be throwing anybody's names, picking one side or the other. But what happens is a lot of times when legislation is being put forward, what people in animal rights groups will do, they will feed information to politicians who aren't necessarily very well educated on animal welfare or animal rights, and they will feed them kind of leading information and things that will make it so that way animal rights and domestication and keeping of private animals can be taken away legally slowly. And by what is done with that is they will slip in little bits of legislation into bills that would seem very well to pass. For instance, in this last whole building thing with COVID and everything in the world right now, we had a piece of legislation that was tried to get pushed into being passed called the HEROES Act. And that was something that was going to be like an additional stimulus package for American citizens to help deal with COVID-19 crisis and the economy and everything like that. And while that sounds really great, this was a multi-hundred-page document of legislation that had a lot of stuff crammed into it under the guise of doing things to help protect against COVID-19, which included some legislation that was very carefully worded that would essentially ban all importation of reptiles, both across state lines domestically and worldwide. And so what that meant for the reptile community and people who do anything with exotic animals, which would, oops, sorry buddy, you okay back there? He hit one of my dreads. Which would include things like Syrian hamsters and gerbils and things like that. But so we honestly probably don't need to be importing nearly as many reptiles as we have in the past. We are breeding plenty of reptiles here in the United States, but there are some that we very, very have a limited amount of bloodlines and genetic diversity. So every once in a while, bringing in a few imported animals into the United States properly and humanely field collected is a good thing. But I'm not going to get too much in that because that's a whole other can of worms. But going across state lines domestically, there was something that was put into legislation a number of years ago back called the Lacey Act, which made it injurious for people to transport specific species, which mainly included larger constrictors and over 100 species of amphibians, mainly salamanders, across state lines. There was, and USARK went to bat for reptile keepers. They went to a federal court. They had a trial and they found that the Lacey Act was injurious in and of itself, so we were able to legally transport animals, large constrictors, reticulate pythons, rock pythons, green anacondas across state lines. Because problems like in South Florida and things like that, where there's, all of the invasive species, animal rights groups were using that to make it so it would be illegal for them to be kept in all 50 states. And while I'm never going to downplay the issues of invasives down in Florida, a lot of the problems in South Florida are essentially isolated in and of themselves. Yes, there are some things moving forward, like they're finding tegus further and further north, even into southern Georgia, and I will not get into, like I said, I'm not going to get into too much of that. I'm just telling you guys the difference between these two things. So what animal rights people do is they give misinformation, leading information that sounds really good, but isn't necessarily in the best interest for a large majority of people. And I don't mean just people who keep these snakes like I do. I'm talking about rodeos. I'm talking about zoos. I'm talking about educational programs. I'm talking about specific breeding programs, doing species survival plans. Anything that is kept in captivity could essentially be a peril. For instance, here in Colorado, it was tabled last year, but it's going to be up again, where here in Colorado, the Colorado Senate has a bill called, that's mainly focusing on traveling zoos, which that sounds like a bad thing. We've all seen the things about, elephants on trains and all that horrible stuff that went on for a very long time, and realistically, most of that doesn't really exist anymore, thankfully. But that would mean that essentially any group that is an AZA, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums, accredited facilities, who did any sort of outreach program or educational program with any sort of exotic, and that was the word that they are using, is exotic animal, would be injurious or illegal. So for instance, if a teacher were to bring a Greek tortoise from home into her classroom, that would technically be illegal. for small people who, who are out there doing animal outreach programs, what I am essentially trying to get started in doing, starting off with talking to you guys like this, that would make it illegal for me to do that. And we've already reached out to several people, including a couple senators and councilmen here in Colorado, and several of them even said that we do have a variety of animal rights and animal welfare laws already in place in Colorado, and they're going to stand against this law, which is absolutely fantastic. So basically, the big thing that I want to, round this whole sorry for this ranting video is that just kind of remember that difference between animal rights or humane education versus animal welfare. And that is essentially ending domestication and keeping of animals, giving them the same rights as human beings, which they should have some rights to be ethically kept, to have, the ability and to be kept healthy and have happy lives. That every single day, people in the reptile community have done a very good job of acknowledging that we need to take steps forward, and that's what we're doing both here at jzsreptiles as well as outside, and a lot of other big YouTube people like that. A lot of people you can very easily see, sorry I'm starting all over the place, that they are taking steps to further improve the welfare of these animals in their lives. So, rounding this whole thing up, please just remember, I'm not trying to be political, but when you see new legislation being passed in your town, in your state, federally, please research it. Please look into it to make sure you're looking into what you are in fact voting for, what your governments are in fact doing. This has nothing to do with political affiliations, liberal, conservative, whatever it may have you, nothing to do with that. These are your individual rights and your rights to keep these animals. And so just because you don't necessarily like snakes, maybe you are a huge horse person, you love rodeos and everything like that, so that's something that needs to be looked at as well. And if you guys out there who you are watching these videos, hopefully I'm reaching some of you guys and you are enjoying these things and you live here in the United States and you know about USARK, please think about donating to USARK. It doesn't feel great to say this, but money is what makes the world go round. And if you donate a little bit of money to USARK, it can help protect all of our rights to keep these guys. Because honestly, right now, our rights and freedoms to actually keep these guys at all is in jeopardy right now. So if you guys can, please do your research. If you know somebody that has them, there's over 1 million households in America that have an exotic reptile. If every single person donated a little bit of money, that's over $1 million to USARK to help fight to keep our rights for these things. And that's what's great about being an American, is we have a lot of rights that a lot of other countries don't have, and that's what we need to do to kind of protect and make sure that we have our rights to keep our animals, not just willy-nilly, but the right way, with their health in mind, with their best interests in mind. Sorry again for this ranty video. Hopefully this was something for you guys to think about. This cleared up kind of the difference, because I know those words get thrown around a whole lot. But if you have any questions, please let me know down below. Like I said, I will throw up some links of some stuff down below for you guys to check out. If you want something more than just this guy talking in the camera to you and you want some really good information, check these sites out. Hope you have a good day, and I'll catch you next time.